Hello and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. This is an exclusive for Patreon video. Thank you for being patient. I posted after the accident and explained I was going to be away for a while. Feeling a lot better, but I had a full house, and that meant not quiet time to record this cases. Today I'm going to cover a case that was unsolved for the longest time, and then finally solved. So let's get started with this case that we will call Justice or Jessica. Jessica Keene was not the first teenager to take a little detour on the road to adulthood. There had been a time when the beautiful 15-year-old was an honor student, a cheerleader, a girl of whom great things were kind of expected. But Jessica fell in love with 18-year-old Sean Thompson, who was a high school dropout. That is when everything started to change. Sean was considered by most people a bad influence. Jessica, the honor student, the cheerleader that was never in trouble, decided to start skipping school. She quit the cheerleading team. She started flunking tests. Her grades were not good. And all of a sudden, she decided she didn't want to go to college. Initially, she had a dream of becoming a zoologist, and her parents were really discouraged and confused. Nothing they did or said made any difference. Now Jessica, as some of us have done before, started sneaking out of the house and was hanging out with him anyway. Even after her parents forbade that relationship. Eventually, the parents decided to ground her but every time they said that, she would run away. Her parents were desperate. At one point, Jessica's mom decided to send her to a 2-week counseling program. It was a center for troubled teens, and it was called Huckleberry House. This was located in their hometown of Columbus, Ohio. Jessica was forced to start this program on March 3rd of the year 1991, and she was due to come back home on March 17th. But the day before going back home, or her departure, I should say, she got a call from Sean. He was in Florida with friends, and he wanted Jessica to hop on a bus and join him. Jessica said no, and this was a big scene. They started yelling at each other over the phone, and everyone at the center heard the conversation. Jessica, during that phone call, told Sean that their relationship was over. Again, soon after she left the counseling center, but not before telling a friend that she was going to the mall. Later on, the friend reported she was in tears and very sad. After that, Jessica was last seen sitting at a bus stop across the street from the Huckleberry House. This was around 6 o'clock in the evening, but no one saw her get on a bus. As you can imagine, she never returned to the center, and she didn't go home. The staff called her parents, who called the police, and they all believed that she might have run away. She'd threatened to do so before, so it was kind of a given. Maybe, after all, this was all a lie, that she pretended to be mad at Sean, and maybe that's where she was going. Sadly, as much as that theory sounded bad, it would be even worse. Because 42 hours later, when the authorities found her body at Foster Chapel Cemetery, located in West Jefferson. This is 20 plus miles from where she was last seen. Her body was naked. She had one sock and part of the bra on. She had some horrible head injuries. And the murder weapon was found near her body. It was a granite tombstone. And it was used with so much force that it had broken in two. Clearly, this was a sex crime. And it was confirmed that it was violent rape. The theory of what happened, according to the Madison County Sheriff's Office, was that she was abducted from the bus stop, taken somewhere where they restrained her and repeatedly raped her. There was a strip of duct tape still attached to her wrist, which supported that theory. Authorities believed that she seemingly escaped her assailant and made a run for it. They found knee impressions among the gravestones, which led them to believe that she was hiding there. But she was found and beaten to death. Who could have done this? Authorities' attention went straight to Sean Thompson, the boyfriend that she had an argument with and dumped right before she disappeared. When Sean came back from Florida, he was interrogated. He had an unbreakable alibi. It was 1,200 miles away when Jessica was killed. They still asked him for a DNA test, and he willingly provided that. And not only him, but all of the friends of his friends. And none of them was a match. Police had other leads, but really took them nowhere. No one had seen Jessica taken from the bus stop before running through the West Jefferson churchyard. No tips to identify a killer. So the investigation was pretty much stalled. And it added to the nearly 40% of murders that go unsolved in the United States. Thankfully, DNA technology now is making it harder for a killer to get away with murder. In the year 2004, a criminal by the name Marvin Lee Smith Jr. was paroled from his latest, jail time. And it was for his sexually assaulting two Columbus women. But this he had done before. He also served time for robbery, kidnapping, rape. So, a condition of his parole was that he was required to provide a DNA sample to be entered into not only the state but the national systems. He had to do it in order to go out. So he did. Soon after, he moved to North Carolina. And that's where they found him. He was extradited to Ohio to face charges of aggravated murder, kidnapping, and rape. This was a case that, in the prosecutor's eyes, warrant the ultimate penalty. And it was likely that the jury would agree. He couldn't claim to be innocent. His DNA was all over the girl, Jessica. So he asked for a plea deal. And he would give a full confession in exchange for life in prison. Prosecutors are typically inclined to listen when a defendant offers a guilty plea, especially when it's going to keep him behind bars for life. In the matter of Marvin Lee Smith, they had a winnable case. They could easily have put him on death row. But all the appeals and all the process is not only long but expensive. And likely he would die of natural causes because of his age. So it was decided to accept the plea offer. So now we know what happened to Jessica Keene during her final hours. This is what he confessed. According to him, he had spotted the pretty teenager sitting alone at the bus stop in Wayland Park. The street was empty, and he saw an opportunity he couldn't pass up. He asked her for directions to approach her. She was giving it to him. He suddenly grabbed her by the throat. She couldn't breathe, so he incapacitated her. She couldn't scream. He dragged her into his car and drove away to her terrible fate. He looked for a spot where he wouldn't be disturbed. He pulled under the cover of some trees near the Chapel Cemetery in West Jefferson. He bound a terrified teenager's hands with duct tape and ripped off her clothes. She was raped for hours. He eventually fell asleep, and she tried to run, jumping from the vehicle in the direction of a churchyard. He woke up and followed her. It was pitch dark. It was hard to find her. And he was just about to leave when Jessica made a mistake. She decided, instead of staying hidden, to run, not realizing there was a tall fence ahead of her in darkness. So she hit the barrier at full speed, thrown back into the ground. He picked her up, also moved her, then found a nearby headstone that was about 70 pounds and crushed that into her head. By the time it was done, her skull was smashed, and it was a mess. You would think that Marvin Smith told this story with a heavy heart or some remorse. He wasn't. The upsetting part of this trial was not only his confession that was inhumane, that was horrific, that seems straight out of a horror movie, but surprisingly the DA did not insist on a no parole condition in the plea deal. So he could walk free after serving 30 years. I mean, it's a possibility, but given his age and his violent crimes, it's probably more likely that he'll die behind bars. It took 17 years to find him and to finally get some justice for Jessica. This was disheartening for the entire community. A cautionary tale for parents with their teenage daughters. But in my opinion, this could have happened anywhere. He just happened to be there. The street happened to be empty. He happened to be a criminal that could spot a perfect scenario for doing what he did. Sometimes I think about, sick minds that can come up with something horrible to do in a matter of seconds, which is what probably happened in his head as he was coming up with this unplanned plan. The idea that she was terrified, running through a cemetery, pitch dark, is just even more terrifying to me, in my personal opinion. Sometimes we read about something happening at night, and for the most part, living in a city, I always imagine it's nighttime, but there's always some kind of light, either on the distance, nearby, a motion light. But it took me moving to the country to realize what truly darkness is. And despite the fact that I'm not scared of the dark, I don't like to be walking in the dark. You're hyper aware. You're trying to keep yourself safe. You don't want to step on a hole or trip on something. So I can't even imagine your brain having to come up with a plan to escape and then running in the middle of the night with not one light nearby, hitting a fence with your face, and then finding this criminal on top of you. I'm glad this case was finally solved, but I wonder how many monsters are still out there. If you don't mind, share in the comments down below. Even if you're here on Patreon, let me know if you heard about this case before. This was the first time I've heard about it, and I'm glad is finally paying for what he did.